relatives. Welcome to the shared experience. My name is Raven, and today I would like to share my experience with grief and loss. So, today I'm going to discuss some pretty personal topics, and they have just been weighing heavy on my mind. And so, my intention for this video is to share my experience with grief and loss so that other people can realize that they're not alone in their grief, they're not alone in their feelings, and hopefully something that I share today will help you on your journey. So, I feel like February for me is a very heavy month as far as the topic of grief goes. I have been going through it this month, but you know, that's life, right? Like, we're all going through something. So last week was the 1 year anniversary of my mother's death, and I just feel like I have reached an important milestone in grieving. I think that first year is difficult. I feel like the first year is a year of firsts. So you have your first holidays, your first birthdays, your first, events where your loved one or your friend or your family member is physically missing from a lot of spaces and places. And so I feel like that first year is really significant. It's a significant time for honoring that missing person in your life. And so, for me at least, the first year brought up a lot of anxiety and worry and just unknown territory. But grief and I are old friends. So I will say that obviously, as a child, we realize that someday we're going to lose our parents, or at least anticipate that one day we will be without our parents. But I think how losing my mom has been different from other losses in my life are pretty significant. Like, I feel like I lived through a whole lifetime in the year that she's been gone. Like, honestly, I feel like I've relived a lot of my past, a lot of growing up, and you relive in some ways a lot of experiences that you had with your mother or parent. And I'm not saying all these experiences are good or bad, but you relive a lot of experiences from your parents, and you question things, and you wonder why, and you really have to go through those times and experiences and heal them. So essentially, I feel like that first year or 13 months without your loved one is a time for healing. And it's a time for honoring your grief. And it's a time for reflection. And one of the biggest lessons that I think I've learned in this year is acceptance. So, acceptance doesn't mean that something is okay. Acceptance doesn't mean that it was good or bad. Acceptance just means that what is what is. And I have to say that I was very close to my mom. I had a really strong bond to her. And that doesn't mean that we always got along or always agreed on things, because my mom was a very strong woman, and she never let anybody tell her what to do. So I feel like I had a really hard time this year, and I honestly have been lost and like unsure of what to do or where to go. And I've never really felt it this strongly. Now, my mom was 80 years old when she passed away, right? So I recognize that, she lived a full life. But it doesn't mean that I was ready for her to go, you know? It doesn't mean that I was in any way prepared for her departure. But I do realize that death is a part of life. And I had to learn this from a pretty early age. And when I was younger, I was always very fearful of funerals and wakes, which we attended fairly, frequently, if I can remember. My anxiety around going to wakes and funerals. Wakes and funerals are not necessarily a place for children, but it's a part of life, right? So, in order to honor and respect the person who's passed, I believe, and I think I probably got this from my mother, that attending the funeral or the wake is a way to pay your respects to that person and support the family in some way. So, having said that, I have grown to become more comfortable with death, mostly because I feel like I've experienced loss quite a bit, and not that I'm comfortable with it, but I'm not afraid of it like I was. So, um, about 15 years ago, we lost our daughter, Sophia. Um, she was 2 years and 4 months old. She had leukemia. She had AML, which is an adult form of leukemia. And she went through about a year of treatment. She had a bone marrow transplant. And shortly after, she relapsed and passed away within about 3 months of us finding out. And as a parent, losing a child, I feel like is the worst thing that can happen to you. We took care of her, obviously, through everything. And it's hard to say and accept, but that was the most difficult experience of my life. It's probably the most significant experience in my life. I really felt like a shattered person after that. Like a shattered mother, more specifically. And I'm not blaming my daughter, but I'm realizing that even after 15 years, I still have unresolved grief from losing my daughter. And it's not that I'm expecting it to go away or that I'm expecting to heal it, but I'm just recognizing the significance of losing a child. And I don't think it ever really heals. I think it's always a part of you. I think you learn to live with sorrow, and you learn to live with a certain degree of anxiety, stress, and uncertainty. I think the hardest part of losing a child is living. And I mean like living, like being in joy, being in love, being in happiness, living. And so losing my mom was different, obviously. Altogether, I spent a lifespan with my mom. And again, like I said, I'm not saying our relationship was perfect. I'm not saying that it was bad or good or anything. Like, I'm just saying we had a strong bond, and I was very attached to my mother, which I guess is a good thing in a lot of ways. Um, but obviously, each child has a different experience with their parents. So, my siblings don't necessarily have the same feelings I do. And to be honest, like, I don't really even know what they're feeling because nobody talks about it. So, you know, there's that. So, basically, I feel like I would like to encourage anyone who is struggling with grief and loss to seek help, to share your feelings with others, to connect with the higher power, connect with the creator, connect with some sense of hope, and honor your healing, honor your grief, honor your pain, honor your sorrow, because it's necessary for growth, really. I've always admired people who I feel like can go through difficult things and then put a smile on their face. But I'm learning that that's not okay either, you know? Like pretending or not being authentic in our pain isn't being truthful, isn't being honest, isn't being real. And so this last year, I've just been like through the mud, you know? Like I've been like not caring almost, you know? Like just not caring, but like I've just been going through it. I don't know. And I know I'm not the only one who's experiencing loss. And that's the reason why I'm sharing this is I want other people to not feel alone. And most importantly, not be afraid to grieve. Not be afraid to share your pain. Not be afraid to look terrible. Not be afraid to be seen as someone who's experienced a significant loss. Because that is the whole point of grieving, is so that people recognize that you've experienced a loss. So like in some traditions, women will wear black for the whole year after their loss so that people in the community recognize that they're grieving, that they've experienced a loss. And we, a lot of us, today, at least in the United States, don't do that. Some women wear veils for a year after so that people recognize that they're grieving. Black veils, rather, not just any veil, but a black veil. And so the bottom line, I guess, is that I think if people were more open about their grief and their losses, right? Because we can grieve all sorts of things. Like, it's not just a person. We can grieve for other losses too. So, jobs, homes, families, marriages, pets, even the loss of just the way things were. So I wish and hope and pray that anyone out there who is struggling understands that they're not alone, and grieving is okay. Sharing your grief is okay. And being a source of wisdom and knowledge for someone else because of your loss is even more significant. I feel like death is a necessary part of our existence. Life could not exist without death. And I do believe that when we all transition, that we will return in a new form. And so with that, I'll leave you here. And know that you're never, ever alone.